Jimbo's Garage.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Jimbo's Garage. Well, today we're going to be doing something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that opportunity has finally come up. You know, I get a lot of comments that ask me, can you show us how to measure and build for a small, simple gate, and then how to install that gate? And I've never really had a clean opportunity to do that. Well, now I finally do. I'm currently working on a project here in town, and they're going to require a gate and a small section of handrail between a couple of columns. So we're going to go over to the job site. I'm going to show you how to measure the opening size and then how to deduct for posts, hinges, and latches. And we're going to come back to the shop here, get it built, get it powder coated. I'll take you back to the job site and I'll show you the installation. So let's get started on today's video. I'll see you over at the job site. Today's video is sponsored by King Metals. They've got all your fabrication needs in one location. From hinges to hardware, balusters to metal decor, brass to aluminum, and a whole lot more. You name it, they've got it. Check them out today at kingmetals.com. Now let's get back to today's video. All right, so we're here at the job site, and this is what we have. We've got a pilaster on this side. We've got a garage on this side right here. Now I want to talk about how I measure for the gate openings. So what you want to do is you want to check for plumb, first of all. You want to be sure that the area that you have to work with is plumb on both sides, and that's going to dictate how you're going to measure for your gate opening. In this case, I know that this is plumb, and I know the column's plumb because I built the column, so I know it's plumb. And so we're off to a good start. We got this, both top to bottom are the same dimensions. So the next thing you want to do is get that dimension. Whatever it is here is going to be the same down here if they're plumb. And then from the concrete surface to the top surface, which is right here, right below this cap right here, that's my fixed area. These are our hard dimensions right here. We're going to go back to the shop. I'll talk about the deductions with the posts. We can talk about the deductions for the hinges and the latches, and we'll get our overall gate size that we need to make for this opening right here. For the same thing over here for this railing. For this railing, we've got a column on this side and a column on this side. This is fairly simple. Check for plumb, be sure they're both plumb, and I know they are. And then measure your distance from this surface here to just underneath the cap right here. Those again are hard dimensions. We'll take this back to the shop, and like I said, I'll show you a diagram. I'll show you the deductions we need to do to make everything work here. All right, let's go back to the shop. Okay, so back here at the shop, and I've created a drawing for basically what we were looking at over at the job site. So I'm going to try to go over this with you. A lot of you guys understand this, but a lot of people don't. I get a lot of people ask, you know, how do you measure for a gate? How's the proper size? What do you need to deduct? And this is what I want to go over here today. At least for me, this is the way I do it. So after measuring the opening from the pilaster to the house, I have a dimension of 43 3/4 of an inch, okay? We're going to be using an 1.5 inch post here and an 1.5 inch post mounted to the house. I like to allow 3/8 of an inch for the hinges, 3/8 of an inch for the latch. So if you take all that and add it up, an 1.5 inch is 3, 3/8 and 3/8 is 3/4. So what we're doing is we're taking 43 3/4 minus 3 3/4 for all of that. Our net dimension for our gate frame is going to be 40 inches in this cross section here. The length overall is 68 inches. I allow 2 inches off the bottom for the surface. In this case, it's concrete. So I like to deduct 2 inches there. And we have a cap on the pilaster here, and I like to deduct a 1/2 inch right here for that. So it is 68 inches minus 2.5, 65.5 inches. So our total gate frame, we're going to start with 65.5 by 40. All right, moving over to the rail, same thing a little bit. You can see from the top of the block to that right to the bottom of the cap here is 40 inches, and then from pilaster to pilaster is 54 1/4. So what I'm going to do is deduct 2 inches off of the 40 and a half. That's 2 inches, 2.5 inches off of 40. And for this distance across here, 54 1/4, I'm going with a really tight tolerance. So I'm only going to allow an 1/8 inch off each side right here. And so that'll be 54 inches. So a total of 37.5 inches by 54 inches for our overall length for our railing between the pilasters. So I hope this is a better understanding for you guys that don't do this all the time. And this is the way I do it. So let's take this over to the welding table and we'll get started making these. All right, we're over at the Evolution right here, and I'm going ahead, I'm going to cut everything to size right here for both the railing and the fence and the posts and everything that, I should say the railing and the gate and the posts, everything included. You know, I usually use, I get a lot of people ask me what thickness I use, and typically for most railing and fences and gates, I use 0.63, which is about a 1/16 of an inch thick. However, for this one right here, I bumped it up to 0.95. It's a little bit thicker, more heavy duty per request of the homeowner on this project right here. A little bit more expensive, but you know, makes for a nice project. Now, this is 1.5 inch square tube. That's what we're using, and I'm just cutting everything to 45s for the rail, or this is for the gate right here, and the rails have already been cut. I was pointing out right there that there wasn't a lot of wasted material here in the material that I got. Sometimes, you know, I have 2 or 3 or 4 feet left over. And in this case here, there's just a bunch of small pieces left over. So that was utilizing the material the best I could right there. All right, I'm over here at the welding table, and the first thing I'm doing is working on the posts right here. This is what I like to do is put a cap on the end of the post. This is a 1.5 inch flat bar stock, 1/8 of an inch thick, and I just weld that on one side, the top side of the post, and I've done that all the way around here, and I'm just dressing it up a little bit with the angle grinder, kind of cleaning things up, making it look real nice. All right, and this is the way I mount things. Now this is an 1.1/8 hole saw right here. And what I do on most of the applications is I drill an 1.1/8 right here, and then I go all the way through the other side, and that's a 3/8 hole on the other side. And what that does is it allows me to do the mounting, and then when I'm done mounting, I've got a rubber plug that fits in there, and it covers that up real nice. It seems to work really good. That's what I've been doing for the last couple of years, and it works real nice. All right, so the first thing I'm doing is working on that section of railing between the 2 columns. I'm double checking my dimensions right here, just be sure that I hit what I need to hit. And I've got it set up with a couple of my table dogs, and then flat even with the end of the welding table. And then I'm cutting the pickets right here. And this is the way I'm going to do. So I got the one side clamped down over there, and then I'll put my pickets in here and get everything. I know it's nice and square because I got both railings at the very end of the welding table. And then I got the pickets in there, and we're going to be using these collars. Got these collars from kingmetals.com. And we're going to be putting 2 collars on each one of these just to give it a little decor, to decorate it up a little bit so it's not so plain looking. They make a couple different ones here. These are cast steel. They also make cast iron. I prefer the cast steel. They work, they weld better, they work better. They are more expensive, but I think they make for a better project. Right there, I was showing you that I turned my gas on and the gauge is at 0. Just want to let you know that that gauge has been at 0 for a little while now, and it's still at 0. And I've welded this project and another project after this before I actually ran out of gas. So just because your gauge, when it hits 0, doesn't mean you're completely out. I'd wait until you actually completely run out. You'd be surprised how much gas you have left. All right, I'm moving along right here, and I've got my spacers in here. It's probably about 1.5 inches or 1 3/4 inches, 1 7/8. I've got all kinds of different wood spacers, and whichever one works the best for the size of railing that I'm using or gate that I'm making. Here in California, we can't exceed 4 inches, so I keep everything underneath 4 inches. And I'm just going along here. And as you're going along, I've mentioned this before, you got to check for square every once in a while. You can't let this thing run out of square. If you do, bad things happen. You can see that's why I got my red square right there. I checked it a little earlier on. But I also have the holes in the welding table that I can go by, and I go by that a lot. So you can see that they line up right with the holes on the welding table. And if I notice it's starting to get out, I make my corrections early. All right, here we are at the very last section right here. And then I've got this little spacer that I'm putting in. It's a 6-inch spacer, and I'm just using that, and I'm just welding these in. Excuse me. And what I'm doing is I'm going to put a weld here on the bottom and another weld on the top side. You'll see that here in a little bit. And then 6-inch spacings off the bottom right here. And I'm only welding them on one side. And I'm going to put, when I install this, I'm going to put the welds to the back side so it looks real clean from the front. I know it's such a small little detail, but it's just the small things that sometimes matter. All right, and you see me welding the back side here of those. No need to weld all the way around. I mean, you probably can for those of you who are going to say, hey, what about powder coating? What about rust getting inside that cavity? You know, I've never had a problem with that. And at least I've never been called back or never noticed anything like that. So that's just the way I've been doing it. But for the pickets, all the way around on both sides is what I like to do. And flip it around to get the other side. Today we're operating off the brand new HTP Revolution 2500. This is a brand new machine from HTP. This is a 3-in-1, a true 3-in-1. This is MIG, TIG, and stick, AC, DC, TIG, and it has pulse in all 3 processes. And dual voltage as well. It's about everything you want in one machine right here. Pretty amazing. All right, got that welded out, and so it's time to be making the tabs right here. And this is some 1.5 by 1/8 flat bar stock, and I've got these cut to the length I want, and I'm just using a washer to give it a little round there, and then I'll take it over the Burr King and kind of round those up a little bit just to give it a little, I don't know, a little character, a little something, rather than just having it square. You know, if you don't have a good belt sander in your shop, man, I'm telling you, those things they're nice to have. This is a 3/8 hole right in the very end right here. Got it set up into KVC. All right, and then I'm welding on the outside right here. And I'm going to be mounting everything from the back side as well again, so I just don't want to see, you don't want to see anything from the front. I'm going to keep everything to the back side. And get everything done, and then just dress up these areas right here on the back side. Just kind of clean up what you can. And just like that, our railing is done and ready to go to the powder coaters. All right, time for the gate. Everything is all cut. I'm going to start by squaring everything up to the welding table with the table dogs. Just going to clamp those down. We know that that's nice and square there. And then put in the other 2 pieces as well. This is something that I recently did. You know, before, you know, I'm learning, before I got this welding table, I would clamp down the 2 sides, weld that, then put the other sides in and weld that, and I had a little bit of trouble with that. This is the best way right here. Clamp everything down, get everything nice and square before you start welding, and it works out really, really good for me. And like I mentioned, before you start welding, check for square like I did in that just a few seconds ago. I was talking when I went through that. I wanted to point that out. Got a tape measure from diagonal to diagonal, check from square, be sure everything is square. A brand new ceramic flap disc from Mercer, and cleans things up really nice. Makes everything look nice and finished. Grind some of those welds down. All right, pickets. Once again, we're spacing at about 3.5 inches or so. First, I want to load them up with these cast steel collars. We're putting 3 on the gate. We put 2 on the railing in there, but we're putting 3 on the gate right here. And the idea is to line up the collars with the railing along with the gate. And so that's so when everything is installed and you're standing in front of it, you look at it, the collars look like they blend all the way across and everything lines up nicely. So that's what that's my plan here on this. And then, so I'll set those collars 6 inches from the top and the same distance down in the center, but that's going to make those collars in the center not exactly in the center of the gate. So I offsetted them with the collars on the bottom, and I moved those up to about 8 inches off the bottom. Something you're really not going to see, but these are the small things that you got to think about, when you're doing fabrication. You in the end product, you want everything to line up. As I'm working across right here, I'm starting to check my spacing. You can see I get to the last 3. I want to be sure everything is going to line up nice and evenly. Made my adjustments accordingly, but this one here worked almost right on the money. So 3.5 all the way across, and then the very last one was off by about 1/8. I just made that adjustment right there. Once again, something you're never going to see, but that's just the way I do it. And this is what I was talking about. So I've marked the railing, and I know where they are. And so I'm putting my marks right here and just using a straight edge to be sure that I set the collars right in the same position that they are on the railing. So when it's all said and done, everything lines up. These collars are a nice addition. I use these a lot. It kind of definitely gives the gate or railing a nice definition and a good look. It just adds a little nice decor to whatever you're doing. Whether you put 1 in there or 2 or 3 like this, it's just a nice little addition. Rather than just having straight pickets and something looking boring, just for a little extra effort here and a little bit of cost, makes something look really nice. All right, got it standing up on end and just getting the pickets finished welding these things all the way around. All right, so my wire of choice is 035, and I use 90-10, 90% argon, 10% CO2, and I'm right at about 20-25 CFH is what I like to go with. Every machine is different. I'm running about 250 inches a minute with this machine at 35 thousandths wire, and it seems to work really good. If you're using 030 wire, your inches a minute probably going to be a little bit more, but this works out really good for me. All right, here's the post right here. And I'm just clamping this in, going to get the hinges on. And as you can see, I've got a couple 3/8 wood spacers right there, and then these are the bullet hinges. Now, because this gate's only about 5'2" or so, I think it's 5'6". The adjustment for the hinges, I like them somewhere between 6 and 8 inches from the top and bottom of the gate. This one I think is right at about 7 inches. It all depends on the length of the gate that you're using. What's important is you get these hinges in a straight row. You can see I'm double checking and want to be sure everything is working good before I weld everything completely out. Those hinges have got to be nice and straight. I learned the hard way. And then another thing is these hinges provide a little platform to weld to on either side. You can see that little flat edge. That's all you need to do is on either side. Don't try to put any more weld on that anywhere else. It's just not designed for that. It doesn't work well. Trust me, what you got here is going to be plenty strong enough. All right, we're home stretch right here. This is the last application. This is going to be for the latch. This is a simple thumb latch is all we're using on this. And I'm putting it down about 4 inches from the top, and I'm close to the outside edge of the gate right there. And then just like that, and then the pin itself, I modified it slightly to work in this situation, and then I welded that all the way around. And that's about it. Off to the powder coaters. All right, so we're here at the job now, and we've got the iron back from the powder coaters. This is the gate right here, and then this here is the railing. So the first thing we're going to do is install the railing right here. This one's going to be fairly simple. We're just going to lift it up in place. I've got my 2-inch spacers right here, and then we're just going to drill and anchor this into these columns right here. The reason why I'm doing this railing first is because I want to establish my height so I can line up the gate that's going to line up with this. So that's the way I've designed it. So let's go ahead and get this installed. All right, so we've established some marks here, some centerline marks on the block right there. I don't know if you can see that or not. You definitely can't see on this side, the sun's in the way. But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get these installed. And the way we're gonna do that, go ahead, Will. Is, of course, the sun is right in the way. So basically what they are screw anchors. I've got some tabs welded on the back right here, and we're just going to drill it into the block and just screw it in just like that. I got all 4 of these right here to do. We'll get that done and I'll show you the finished product. All right, now we got our rail installed here. We've measured over here. We've transferred some marks onto the column, transferred some marks here onto the house, and we know our elevation. So now we can go ahead and mount the post to the garage. We want to do this first. This is where we're going to hang the gate from, and then we'll mount the other post. So here we go. We're gonna mount this the same way by drilling in. Now this is stucco, and underneath the stucco there's plywood shear on this whole wall. So I know we're gonna hit wood. We're gonna break through the stucco right here. We're gonna use lag screws to tie it in. Be sure that your post is level, and we're hitting our mark. You might see this mark right here. This is the bottom side of the cap. This is the right elevation we're trying to hit. All right, so we've broken through the stucco right there, and now we're onto the wood, and we're using a lag screw right here, and we're just gonna run that in. Just like that, we're there. All right, we'll repeat the process here on the center and the bottom, and we'll get that hung. All right, a couple more things we want to do before we put the gate on, and that is put these bushings. Do not lose these brass bushings. This is the most important part of this gate right here, is installing these bushings. All right, so now we'll be able to drop the gate on, and hopefully everything lines up. All right, there it is. And then we'll put an 1.5-inch post on the other side, and there it is. Our gate is installed. Let's get the other post on, and we'll finish this up. Post installed. And there it is. All right, that works really good. Now for you OCD guys, I know if you're like me, you're worried about these holes right here. That's what these are for. Just like that. I'll put them in all of them, and that'll finish that off. All right, there it is, finished installed. That's the ironwork. And then here's the gate, and the gate closes perfectly. And the idea was to line up those collars, top and bottom on the railing, to line up on the gate. So if you look at the whole project, those collars should line up all the way across. All right, that was a good install. I hope you guys learned something from this.
See you next time on Jimbo's Garage.